It's the Niskaunity Podcast, and Heather and Jon Coupal are the guests today. And we just meet Niskayuna people who are not chief of police or town supervisor or anything like that, just like facing the crowd kind of people. And I asked you to come and be on the podcast because you had reached out to me maybe like 2 months ago, and I totally dropped the ball. I got back to you like weeks later. But tell people why you want to have the hot dog cart or the beer truck at your house.
We did.
Why?
We finally, after 6.5 years, finally adopted our foster son.
Which is awesome.
So we were planning a celebration because that's a huge milestone we've been waiting for 6.5 years.
So how old is your foster son?
7.
Okay, so since 6 months old.
He was at
14 months.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. But he was a baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does that work? How do you I have so many questions. How do you have a foster child brought to your home? I'm probably the wrong term, but how do you get a foster child? And then how do you go through we love this child, it's been with us since it's an infant and might not always be, like, how do you emotionally, like, the floor is yours. Like, educate us.
Well, so I was coming back from I'll go back a little bit before that. So growing up, I didn't have the best upbringing, and I'm still in contact with my family. I was raised still by my family, but there was a decent period where my friend's family took me in, and gave me that love and support that I needed at an age where I really needed it. And so we had talked about that, wanting to become foster parents, maybe adopt one day. And it was after my second deployment. I had just come back. We talked like, now's the time. Let's just do this. Yeah. So we reached out to Schenectady. She did reach out to Schenectady DSS, and they had a class for it. So we attended it. It was like a 2-month period, right? Yeah. Okay. So you go through training. They talk about all sorts of things. And then, funny enough, then you also get a home inspection done. And if your home's certified as safe to even house children, then you'll get certified.
Which is great, because so many people have children that don't necessarily have those hoops that you have to jump through.
Yeah.
Right. So 8 days after being certified, I'm at work. I get a call, and it said, "Hey, we have a placement. Can you take him?" And I'm like, "All right, what are the parameters? How old is the child?" I got very little, a couple of details, and I think I pretty much said yes. But I'm like, I'm going to call Heather right away. I think I just called her and said, like, we have a kid, right?
That's a joint decision,
right?
Yeah.
Well, I think we already knew at that point we were going to, but we didn't expect it, right? Everybody gets 9 months if you're pregnant, right, to plan and prepare.
Right.
We had less than a week, right? Or like, we had 8 days, right? Yeah. So really excited. At the time, I had a Mini Cooper S, right? Not the best family car.
No, not at all.
So I went to DSS after work, picked him up. I'm like, I don't even know how to put a freaking car seat in the back of this damn car. I'm folding the front seats up. Like, luckily I'm tiny, right? So I could easily get in the car. But then I brought him home. I carried him in. He had this wonderful smile.
Hold on a second. Like, you're brought into an office or something, and there's just a baby and a carrot. Like,
well, it's not like the baby was dropped off like at a...
I see something like in a movie in the 50s where there's like a woman who just got off a train, like holding a baby in like a winter or something, and then here you go, take care of it sort of situation.
No, so
the child is usually removed from their family, and then might have to go wait at the office until foster family.
Oh, that's right, because it's foster, not adoption.
It was fostering to start.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah, so I brought him home that night, and I remember being so happy, like this is what we had planned on doing, and he was just so chill. He was a roly-poly. He was so cute. He had this little old man walk because he was 14 months old, so he's waddling around the house, super cute. And she goes, well, what do we do? How do we prepare the house for him? And I'm like, watch him. Like, we don't know what to do, but if you watch him, eventually he's going to get into something he's not supposed to, and we know, okay, this is what we need to prepare and block or whatever. And so he taught us throughout, the coming months how to be good parents.
How do you go through month after month of like, we love this child, a little more this month and a little more this month and a little more this month, but always under the cloud of this is a foster situation. it's not a permanent thing.
I feel like it was easier at first in the beginning because we had just gone through the class and they like drill that into your mind. Like the ultimate goal, at least in the beginning of all foster kids, is to reunite them with their family.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of sitting in your head. So like when he started talking and would try and call us like Mama and Dada, we'd say, oh no, like you want to go see John, or yeah, bring that to Heather. So we would try and use our first names and stuff. But once we were a couple months in and we saw his bio mom was not doing what she needed to be doing, she really wasn't present, she wasn't making visitations, it started to look more like this might be a long-term thing. So we hit a certain point and he was calling us Mama and Dada because that's who we were to him.
Sure.
And it finally we were like, we're not going to stop that. Like we're just going to let that roll for now. And the longer we got into it, the more it was, he's not our foster son, he's our son.
Sure.
And it is still hard because you would go to court every 6 months for a permanency hearing, and the judge would decide like should he continue foster care or should he go back to his bio family. And that was always nerve-wracking because even though we knew bio mom was not doing any of the things she was supposed to be doing, she wasn't even around. We obviously are the best placement. Yeah, bio dad wasn't in the picture. You still have that nerve of like they could take him away. They could today at court decide he's no longer with us and tonight he won't be home with us.
Oh, that same day.
Yeah.
Well, it was also the worry of family coming out of the woodwork because even if you're not a foster parent, if there's family that comes out and says we'll take the child, they will place that child with a family member before foster care. Or they'll still be in foster care, I should say, but they won't be with a foster family. They'll be with family. So that worried us a couple times.
It's a roller coaster of emotions.
No, it sounds like it for sure.
But the longer and longer we got into it, the more we knew it was just a matter of time.
Was there any tension? I mean, you have to be in the same courtroom with the bio mom, and you have their bio child.
Yes. When she would show up,
I think to start there were some issues, and like looking at because initially there was visitation, and slowly bio mom actually worked up to having overnights with him for a little while. That was within the first 9 months, right? The first 9 months. No. So DSS would pick him up. He would go to bio mom for the overnight, but it worked from a weekly visitation for an hour to 2 hours to unsupervised at one point, but again it ramped up to an overnight unsupervised. But the beginning was when she would get the visitation, she would notice bumps or cuts or bruises. And I'm like, well, he's 14 months learning to walk. That's what he does. He falls and bumps everything, right? And she would try to nitpick and find ways to be like, well, maybe these parents aren't suitable to watch my child. But then we did meet her a number of times. And although she said she definitely wanted to get him back, that's what she said, not what she did. She eventually realized we did love him, and she could recognize that, and there was less pushback or nitpick. It was more of her still fighting to get him, but recognizing that he still received the love that he needed from us.
So this would be when this whole process began, this would be 2017?
2018.
2018, okay. So you get a couple years in. During this time, are you trying to move to the point of adoption? Is that something you actively or aggressively even are trying to get done?
So you can't really. So it all depends on the judge's decision on those permanency hearings. So there's a permanency goal set, which the beginning Heather had said is to reunite with family. So once that is, you can't really fight for anything. You have no rights as a foster parent. You're just there to support the child. And then after years, it switched from return to parents to parents or other suitable persons was the terminology for it.
So that opens the door to us.
Yes.
And personally, we had talked about, yes, of course we want to adopt him and stuff, but you have to go through this whole process with court and everything. So then the goal changes. And then from there, it eventually changed to adoption.
Okay. So fast forward to now. how'd you find out? You just went to court one day and the judge was like, okay, we've been doing this long enough?
No. I wish it was that easy.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, it was that easy as far as the judge finally making that decision, right? Eventually, it's just that trigger is pulled, and then all the documents say that is the goal. But after that point, then there's still so much more to do. So there's the goal of that, but then the child can't be adopted until parental rights are terminated or surrendered.
Oh, okay.
So then you have to go through that whole process. So the goal could have been adoption from the get-go, really, but without terminating parental rights, there's no ability to adopt.
Gotcha. So someone has to tell the parent you no longer have rights to the child, or the parent has to go,
I don't want the rights.
Wow. Which happened in your case?
We had to fight to terminate.
Gotcha. Okay. What would you tell people who are, first of all, is it hard to find a baby to foster? Like when I think of fostering a child, I always, and it's again, I'm from TV and movies. That's all the experience that I have. It's some 13 or 14 or 15-year-old that's been moved from place to place to place and is pretty rough around the edges, and somebody's certainly hopefully willing to take on that challenge, but it never seems like it's a 14-month-old.
Yeah, it is harder usually to get the babies, but I feel like there's a huge need in Schenectady. So for anybody who's listening to this who is thinking of it, like, please do it if you have the means.
So tell people how do you start the process? Like, I know friends, family, and lots of people who have issues having children on their own, for example. If they want to go that route, how do you do that?
We went through Schenectady County DSS, but there are also other agencies like Berkshire Farms has fostering and stuff. So we only know Schenectady DSS. We just contacted them. They run these foster parent certification courses a few times a year. So you get into the class, you take the class, you become a certified foster parent, you will immediately start getting phone calls. We constantly still get notified and asked. And unfortunately, we do have a daughter on our own now as well, biologically, but we just don't have the space now to be able to take in. We get calls all the time for sibling groups that they're trying to not have to separate, but we get calls for babies right from the hospital. We get calls for all ages of kids. So
that's incredible. Babies
will come up from time to time. Like, if that's really what you want, you can also specify what ages you can take for your home or what you're interested in, male, female, whatever. So you can specify, but there is a huge need right now for foster families. Not necessarily even long-term like we have done. We've kind of said now, between the space at our house and just how long this has taken us for this process, we're still fostering, but we're going to do respite, which might just be a weekend because the foster family the child's with is going out of town on vacation or has a trip, and they just need somewhere for the foster child to go for the weekend. So that would be respite, or like short-term. We'll take them for a couple nights until you find a home for them, kind of a thing. But so there's different options too. If you can't take on long-term and you can do just weekends or vacation time, there's options for that too.
So how did your family feel about all this? I mean, you said earlier that you didn't necessarily have an ideal upbringing, right?
I don't think anybody does, honestly. But
I don't know how involved, for example, your parents or cousins or siblings or things of that sort are, but were they into this? Were they like devil's advocate? Hey, you might get a year down the line and then fall in love with this child and then they're going to take it away. Why would you set yourself up for that? I mean, where'd they come, where were they coming from?
I'm glad you asked, because I go right to the adoption day. We made it a point to pack that room, and it was a very small courtroom, but everybody was elbow to elbow. We made it a point to show, like, this child is our child, and that expression, it takes a village, or the saying, it takes a village. Like, we had our village there that day. We had so much support, and my friends from growing up, from like middle school, high school, college friends, work friends, family on both sides, like, they fully supported us both fostering and then definitely adopting.
I feel like they would all express the variety of opinions too. Like, have you thought about this fully? Like, what's going to happen if they do give you a kid and then take it away? Like, to bring it up, and it's like, trust me, we've already thought about all those options and have worked through those scenarios together, but we want to help people in our community, and this is a way we can do it.
So, does he know that he must have had some visitation when he was younger, but at 8 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, does he know that he's adopted, or does he think that it's always been my family?
He knows.
And you are your family, sir.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
But,
I mean, he knows. It was a really fine line because our case just took so extraordinarily long to do this that we were like, when this actually happens and he's adopted, it's not like we can be like, congratulations, you're finally part of the family, or you're officially a Coupal,
right.
because he always has been for so long. And so it was more like, legally, the paperwork side of it is, and we no longer have all these visits every month of caseworkers and lawyers and court-appointed advocates coming to visit us. So that's how we kind of broached it there. But especially when I became pregnant, it brought up a lot of stuff because he is black and we are a white couple.
Right.
And so that brought up a lot of stuff of like, oh, my skin doesn't match your skin. And we started having lots of conversations. And he would say, Mommy, I wasn't in your belly. I was in somebody else's belly. So he knows that he came into our family at 14 months old, and he knows he wasn't born from my body, like his sister was. So we've had those conversations, but I don't think he really remembers much about his bio mom or the first year of his life, thankfully, because it was traumatic.
okay. So you have a multiracial household.
Yes.
All right. And those conversations happen when he realized his sister was born.
No.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately, it happened because some at school said some really awful, nasty things to him.
Okay.
And it propelled us into having those conversations probably before we were ready to.
Okay. What age would that be?
4.
He was 4.
Wow. Okay. That's hard.
Yeah.
I looked at her, I'm like, I don't even know how, we haven't even planned this out.
I'm a teacher, and so and I'm a reader, so I had all these books about love makes a family, and like your skin doesn't matter if you match, like all these wonderful books, and I knew it'd be coming down the line, but I didn't want it to happen the way it did, unfortunately.
Not at 4, certainly.
And yeah.
So this I want to ask you also, and we'll certainly edit if you don't. Did you originally foster because conceiving was challenging?
No.
Oh.
We just always talked, there's so many kids in our country and beyond that need homes. And we just thought this would be a great way to try and help who we can for whatever amount of time they come into our home.
Oh, that's remarkable.
And so, yeah. So
I don't know why my mind, and this is, think about it, it's a terribly insensitive question, but my mind always goes to people will foster or adopt perhaps because they can't have children.
I mean, it is one avenue for people like that, but for us, we just know there's so many youth out there who need love and support for however long they can get it.
I wouldn't be where I am today without my friend's family taking me in. I would not be where I am.
So the last question, if you had a couple sitting across from you right now, no children, thinking about fostering a 14-month-old, knowing now what you know, what would you advise them to do? Anything that maybe like advice that could have saved you time or frustration or anything like that, or is there just, what would you tell them? If Heather and John were sitting across from you, but were 7 years younger, what would you tell them?
Oh my gosh, I feel like he was honestly so much easier than our daughter.
No, but he sleeps and eats just fine, and our daughter's a terror. But as far as the adoption goes itself, or fostering in general, I don't think I would tell myself any different. Like, again, coming from a government background, right, I know what it's like to go through the red tape and wait longer than you should to accomplish a task. So it was a little bit easier for me throughout. So I would tell my younger self to be more supportive to her through that process. And know that whether it's that first placement you have or maybe it's the 5th, and the goal is adoption, but no matter what child comes through your home, because we've had 5, I want to say, in total come through.
Oh, okay.
We did, 4 respites in Quinai. That little bit of love you can give them could make that difference. So, although it may make you feel good to do it, like do it for them as well. Make your enjoyment a byproduct of helping them.
And I'd say have a village, because it takes a village.
Yes.
Say that again, because our customers are being very, very rude.
I would say use your village and have a village because it takes a village.